Hi everyone, Billy Hollis here. Welcome to this course on design principles and how they apply to creating experiences for your users. Some of you may know me as the author of some of the earliest books on software development in .NET, or you might have seen me speak at conferences on user interface technologies. But what you might not know is that in the last several years, I've gone much more deeply into the conceptual side of user interface design. As our user interface technology stacks, such as HTML5 and XAML, have given us more flexibility in creating user interfaces, I've found it useful to look at the general discipline of design. I've learned a lot of things about it that are not generally understood or appreciated in the developer community. So in this course, I'd like to tell you about the most valuable lessons that I've learned so far. I'm going to try to explain them to you from a developer's point of view and tell you how they might help you step up your own game to create interface designs to match the increasing expectations of your users. Now, this is not a typical developer training course. It doesn't have any code in it, for example. You will see some demonstrations to illustrate many of the concepts, but the main content is on discussing general universal design principles and helping you understand how to apply them when doing your own user interface and user experience design. It's also different because it includes exercises. You'll learn these concepts better if you are actively engaged in thinking about them. To help you do that, at regular points in the training, I'll ask you to pause the training video and answer a question I pose. At other points, I'll ask you to carry out a design exercise, usually involving a little bit of sketching. Now, I can't ensure that you do these exercises, of course, but I will tell you that you'll get a lot more out of the course and retain the concepts involved much, much better if you actively participate by asking the questions and doing the exercises. All you'll need really is some paper and pencil, and if you don't have any ready to hand, I encourage you to pause the training and get some now. By the way, I do suggest that you use blank unlined paper, such as copier paper, instead of lined notebook paper. So if you don't happen to have any ready to hand, pause the training video right now and get some before we go any further. Let's talk a bit about why this material is so important. This is the banner that was placed at the entrance to the Anaheim Convention Center last fall when Microsoft had their Build conference and introduced the beta version of Windows 8 to the public. Notice the tagline, "Use what you know, do what you've always imagined." Why did Microsoft make this the theme of Build? Well, quite simply because the old ways of doing software are not good enough anymore, and Microsoft has begun to realize that. We are entering a time of dramatic transition for our industry. The last comparable time, I think, was from the mid-1980s to the mid-1990s. During that period, PCs started the distributed computing trend, and then it was further fueled by local area networks, and later the internet tied together computers all over the world. Increasing hardware power made the classic graphical user interface the default way to work with users. Now, those of us working in the industry during that period can tell you that just about everything we did before that era was just swept away. Mainframes and command line interfaces are still around, but only a few specialists care about them anymore. How about today? Well, for the present, we're seeing a very wide proliferation of devices. We're seeing personal devices become a ubiquitous part of our daily life. Most of them have some kind of touch computing interface, which is a big departure from the kinds of PC-based interfaces that we've used over the last 20 years or so. We're also seeing near ubiquitous connectivity. We just expect to have connectivity to the internet pretty much anywhere that we go. And we're moving to a model where we expect most of our applications to store their data in the cloud. We don't need the individual devices to hold everything anymore. We've got the ability to hold as much data as we need somewhere up in the cloud. These are tremendously disruptive factors. And again, I expect that much of what we did in the past will be swept away in the not too distant future. So if we're going to stay productive and valuable in our industry, we need to adapt. The recent success of Apple is perhaps the most obvious indication of this. New technologies for delivering user experiences have moved on to things like the Kindle Fire, and they're forcing technologists to really step up their game. Many of you have probably seen or experienced cases where a decision maker has demanded that something for the business be made to run on an iPad or one of the Android tablets, or perhaps some kind of mobile device. This happens to be a Windows Phone. Now, of course, they don't realize how hard that is. And to be honest, they don't care much. As far as they're concerned, that's why they pay us to figure these things out. And let me be perfectly blunt about this. We're not ready. I see the vast majority of developers, particularly those in the Microsoft space, as totally mired in habits from the past. They seem to find it very hard to get out of the ruts they've dug by years or decades of work in software development. And as a result, they don't really know how to use these new devices and how to create applications that are suitable for them.